The Major League Soccer 2025 schedule. It's been released about 4 hours ago. And the new New York City manager, we don't know who that is yet, but quite a challenge in the opening 2 weeks. We'll talk about that. Trades, managers, Coachella, MLS draft, and GAM reveal party also. All that coming up on NYCFC Views Live.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Wow, Ronny Deila cried after that game, Roberto.
Yeah. Yes, he did, and then he got naked, sort of.
And then he got... So, it's been we've been pushing forth the story that we figure he's going to be the next coach of Atlanta United. I tell you, the timing of him getting released or sacked or terminated, whatever the words are, from the club in the Middle East in UAE, right when it was apparent that he was going to be a very strong candidate and their lead choice. So we'll get into that a little bit. But I think the big news today, it's always exciting when the schedule comes out, right? You wonder what's going to happen. And
absolutely. Looking to see where our trips are.
I know.
Looking to see if there's any stadiums we haven't been to.
It's always a little it's a little selfish for us. Yeah, it is.
Yes, absolutely. It's 100% selfish for us. So I was looking, and I guess we're going to start with the schedule then. We'll do that. And, I mean, everybody is going to be interested in that for sure. But
well, let's go to let's just say the new manager, who we don't know, we'll talk a little bit about that, but we don't have any inside scoop there. It's funny, we know about Atlanta's next manager, but not New York City.
Nothing about here.
But how about this? You walk into the job at Miami, at LAFC, the top two in the Supporter Shield rankings in 2024. I don't know who did the schedule, but maybe there's a little bias there or something. Not really.
It could only be like downhill from there, right? In a good way. After that, but then again, they come back and play Orlando, which might have been the best team in the East towards the end of the season. But a lot of these teams are going to look a lot different once 2025 starts. So we don't know. It's going to be fun, but obviously, you hope that Miami is all healthy, and we'll get down there early. And it's an early game, 2:30 in the afternoon.
Love it.
So you're not going to get much beach time, Glenn. You're not getting beach time.
I'll figure it out. But but here, listen, you mentioned afternoon. 9 afternoon games on the schedule this year, which is
good. It's one of my main complaints. Yeah. It's one of my main complaints about an MLS season pass. Too many games at 7:30, and people are wondering why? There's a million people watching. Yeah, that's a million people watching 13 of the 15 games. Because half a lot of your season ticket holders, all of your season ticket holders rather, are MLS season pass holders. So they're not watching anything because they're at the game. So, right. You're losing all these things. It just didn't make any sense. And plus, if you really want to be relevant in Europe, and God knows, MLS wants to be relevant in Europe, and all these teams want to be relevant in Europe, which is why they're all FCs and SCs and all of that. Right, they want to be relevant even more so there than in their own hometown, right? But they're not. Who's watching a game in England or in Portugal or in Spain at 12:30 at night, 12:30 in the morning? No, it's crazy. And so you have to have some afternoon games, and it looks like there's going to be a lot more out there. So that's good.
And I haven't inspected the overall schedule closely enough, Roberto, to know something that we talked about last week, where it would behoove MLS to have something akin to a game of the week. Well, there have been a couple of stories regarding MLS and MLS season pass this week, but there was one story out there that suggested just that, like a game of the week put it in a primetime spot so that in Europe they could watch this game. So again, I don't know. I haven't looked closely enough, but just take. I would imagine the first one is going to be the New York City Inter Miami game because it's a 2:30 start on that Saturday.
100%. So I mean, and that's very good. That's a great way to kick off the season. Actually, didn't New York City kick off the season last year, first game? Or this year, rather, this past season? Wasn't that the first game in Nashville? Wasn't that 2 p.m. game in Nashville? And that kicked off everything?
I don't remember. But here...
I will tell you because I have the 2024 schedule. Oh, no, we started Charlotte 7:30, so maybe it was a year prior than in 2023. This year, it was Charlotte 7:30, so... we were with everybody else.
Well, we know
the year prior, New York City started. It was in Nashville, and it was the first game of the year.
I have to assume this one's going to be standalone. But you wanted variety in the schedule, Roberto. So here we go. So I said 9 afternoon games.
Yeah.
5 days of the week New York City will play this year. They're going to play on Sunday, Friday night, Wednesday night, and 2 Thursday night games. So we got Thursday night football. But we don't have Monday or Tuesday, so those are the only 2 days that are exempt from the New York City schedule.
Okay, that's good
too. Yeah,
and a lot of afternoon games too, much more than last year.
A lot of what?
Afternoon games.
Yeah, 9 afternoon games.
Yeah, so I think we had 6 last year, all told. Maybe it was even less than that, but it's good. I like it.
11 games.
It's a good thing.
Now we talked to Brad Sims spoke for about 10 minutes at the groundbreaking, to the scrum, and he's always asked, you've asked him when we've had him by ourselves, it would make sense, more games at Citi Field, you're going to move into that area eventually, and sure enough, it went pretty much the opposite way. 11 games at Yankee Stadium, 5 at Citi Field,
and 1 to be determined.
Yeah, on decision day against Seattle is the only cross-country decision day game. They have to travel from the Pacific Northwest to New York City to play at they don't know where yet. So they could have a baseball.
Now, so let's go through this. Option number 1 for that game is Red Bull Arena. Oh, I'm sorry, Sports Illustrated Stadium. Excuse me, Sports Illustrated Stadium. That's option number 1 because they don't know what the Yankees and Mets are going to do and if they're going to be in the playoffs or not, and if the stadium if either Citi Field or Yankee Stadium will be available, and that's the reasoning. So right now, you can pencil it in for Red Bull Arena, and if the Mets or Yankees don't do as well, or there's a quirk in the schedule where they're definitely, they're both on the road and there's enough time to set up the field and then get rid of it, then it will be one of those 2 places.
I wanted to make a point about Inter Miami will play at Citi Field. That's going to be a Wednesday night game. I don't know if you noticed that.
I did. And it's a Citi Field, smaller venue, Wednesday night. I did. And it's going to be interesting to see, how the crowd responds this time around. Last time it was a sellout, but, they didn't sell it out until the last minute. It wasn't like it was totally sold out from before. And so we'll see how that goes. And if Messi's around, and I'm sort of surprised that it was on a Wednesday, but, but they don't control their own stadium. That's one of the reasons. One of the main reasons they need a stadium to be able to control their own dates, which they can't do. So they're at the mercy of the Mets and Yankees.
All right. Well, Messi's drawing power will be challenged there because Wednesday night crowds, pretty traditionally have been low, below their average anyway, on the evening match. Now here, Brad also talked about this, and it did come to fruition. So New York City's first 2 home games will be on March 8th and March 15th. And that'll be against Orlando and then New England. New England, they've got a new forward, and that'll be. I'm sure we'll bring that up here in a second. Are you doing your laundry, or what's going on over there?
I'm not doing anything. I'm just listening to you.
Okay.
That external noise is not me.
All right. Is that Shane?
I heard it as well, but it's not me.
Maybe Shane's a little behind on his laundry. He's been traveling.
Maybe or shaving. I don't know.
So Orlando and New England. So March 8th is So the way, and you're always looking for those moments where you can, highlight something in the schedule, make a big deal out of it. Well, March 18th marks is the day to the day that New York City opened their first season in 2015. It was in Orlando at the Citrus Bowl. We were both there. So they're going to mark that with a celebration. And then March 15th, the following week, that was their home opener when they beat New England. Patrick Mullins scoring in that game. Patrick Mullins, who is now and David Villa. Mullins now working for Loudoun United as director of recruitment. I just learned that a couple of days ago.
Okay.
Great guy. So those two are happy. So it's 2 on the road and the 2 at the home with the celebration. The other thing I wanted to mention about the schedule, Roberto, and I always look for this first, and especially the struggles New York City's had on the road. Look at July. Do you have the schedule in front of you?
I do.
July 12th.
Shane, do you have it? You can put it up.
There it is.
There we go. That's easier to do. So actually, it's better on
look at all that white in July. White means road. At Charlotte on July 12th. 4 days later at Orlando. 3 days after that at Sporting KC. And then 6 days later at Dallas in the middle of July in the summer. Sporting KC, that's probably one of the worst. Other than Houston, that's the worst place you want to be. And then Dallas?
Dallas is worse than Kansas City.
And Orlando?
Dallas is way worse than Kansas City.
No, I disagree.
Kansas City will be in the 90s. Dallas will be in the hundreds. The last time we were there, we were in the hundreds 2 years ago.
Sporting KC is one of the most humid places I've ever been in my life in the summer.
That might be, but the temperature in Dallas will be over 100 during the day, and if we're lucky, it's going to be close to 90 by kickoff, which is 7:30 Central Time.
So here we are, right smack dab in the middle of the season, 4 in a row on the road, all within a 13-day period.
Days.
4 games in 13 days in the middle of the summer. The roster depth is going to be tested during that stretch. So
yes, it will be.
It's tough. You open up with Miami and LAFC on the road to kick off your season. You're the new manager. You're trying to get off to a good start. And now you hit the summer, and we'll see. I mean, it is what it is. This is
it is, but Glenn, it's not only that, but they get a quote unquote breather coming home and playing Columbus.
Right, and also playing through the international break in March. I noticed because I was looking at that weekend in particular for myself. And so March 22nd, that's during the international break. New York City will be at Columbus, the aforementioned Columbus. So that's all.
By the way, who totally got screwed by their owners.
So they're going to host Inter Miami on April the 19th, and they're playing at Cleveland's football stadium instead of lower.com.
It's terrible. It's over a 2-hour drive from Columbus to Cleveland, and I know that they threw in all these incentives and things, but you can't do that to them. You're going to take the best game of the year for them, which is seeing Messi and all that, and you're taking it out of the city. I mean, if you played it at Ohio State Stadium, all right, fine, maybe you can make an argument for that. Right? That's the one. To take it to Cleveland.
Well, the Haslams own the Crew, and they also happen to own the Browns, yeah.
Which they've screwed up, by the way. They're doing very well with the Crew, but they've screwed up the Browns terribly. They're an awful franchise. Signed Deshaun Watson to a guaranteed contract when you never have to guarantee anything in the NFL, or almost anything in the NFL. And now they screw over Crew fans by taking the best game and bringing it to Cleveland. Not a cool thing to do. Definitely not a cool thing to do. Well, very disappointed in them.
Well, there was reasons behind it. It exposes Crew to a new market, and they can offer substantially more people a chance to watch the game. So, look, if you're running that club,
not if you're in Columbus.
Hold on, a 2-hour drive is nothing, by the way, if you're a fan. So I don't even want to hear about the drive. Honestly, now I don't want it to. How many people drive more than an hour to get to New York City games? Are you kidding me? Or it takes an hour on the subway, hour and a half on the subway if you're coming from Brooklyn and have to get to
148 miles by car from the center of Columbus to Cleveland.
Here's the deal. If you run this club, now here's the question I have. Why? And I think we know why they're not looking at Columbus. It could, is it a college? No, there's no college football going on unless they're playing the annual white red game or something, those spring games that they play, but I'm sure they could get that moved. But if you could sell 47,000 more tickets and it's going to be at an elevated rate, of course you're going to move the game if you can. No?
No.
All right.
No, absolutely not. If you move it within, if you're in New York, right, and New York City decides to move one of their games, let's say to, MetLife, because it's going to be some huge event, whatever. Okay, at least it's within the metropolitan area. This is 148 miles away. You can't do. You've taken it out of town.
All right. Well, I'm not in favor of it.
To do this.
I'm not in favor of it.
Greed.
I'm just looking at both sides from a sporting standpoint.
If you desperately need to do that to make money, you're in the wrong business.
No,
then you've done this wrong.
Well, I'm on your side. I despise it from a sporting standpoint. You should play a lower.com field where you're going to have the best advantage to win the game. And they did make the announcement that if they happen to host Inter Miami in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, that game will be played at lower.com field. So there you go. there you go.
And look, I applauded the Haslams a lot when they wound up buying the team from Precourt, and then he went to Austin and got an expansion franchise, and they kept him there and all that. I applauded all of that, and I was a very big supporter of what they did. But at the same time, as much as that was a great thing to do, this is a terrible thing to do, and I'm calling them out for it. I just am. I'm not, we play fair here. You get applauded for when you do things right, and you don't when you screw things up.
So
we have questions, by the way.
Just we have comment. Yeah, before we leave the schedule, because I was just about to depart. We'll look at Coachella briefly, but New York Tech 13 says, I'm disappointed San Diego's not making a visit. I want to say Irving, Chucky.
We're disappointed we're not going to San Diego.
Yeah, we wanted the other way around.
Go there.
Sorry, Tech. Alex Jimenez.
We hope that Snapdragon Field has figured out its field issues, because they had major issues last year, if I'm not mistaken, and they had to change a couple of games from the women's team there that they had to play elsewhere because the field wasn't in good enough shape.
Yeah, I think it even affected. It might have affected a post-game match. Here's from KP.
Post-season match, yes.
From KP, isn't there a new? Here it is, Leagues Cup format to that? Are you guys getting into that? Also, we're hoping for a much better U.S. Open. Well, the only thing we know about Leagues Cup is that it's going to be different. Here's what we've heard, Roberto. If you've heard more or different, you go on this. It looks like the latest we've heard is that 18 MLS teams will play against 18 Liga MX teams, and they're trying to make it so that there's more MLS versus Liga MX teams, which makes sense to me, because the MLS versus MLS doesn't excite me at all.
Nobody cares. And
the other games
it's America, Guadalajara, Tigres, Monterrey, nobody cares about Juarez playing against Mazatlán. Nobody cares.
I'm afraid I can't credit who put this out, but if it does come to fruition, they had the first story. I don't remember, but it was 2 18-team conferences in essence, much like UEFA Champions League is this year. So Mexico will go 1 through 18, the MLS 1 through 18, and then the top 4 teams from each group would then advance to the quarterfinals. You go to the semis. You go to the.
They're supposed to be crossing even in. They're supposed to be crossover. There's supposed to be crossover within the first round as well.
Right. So all those, you're right. All those games, I think it's 4 games. All those games will be played MLS versus Liga MX, and and you put MLS first because all those games are going to be played in the United States of America or North America, up north of the border, and then the
remaining 12 teams.
Well, you figure they're going to be in the U.S. Open Cup. Yeah. So that's what we think. There has been no announcement. You would think the Leagues Cup announcement will come shortly after this MLS regular season. The other thing we heard, Roberto, and this came from the president of of Liga MX, he said that
Miguel Arriola.
it's going to be all midweek games, that they're not going to disrupt the regular season in Mexico. So it would be doubtful that if that's the case there, I'm sure it'll be
That's going to
played
be the
out
case
same
here.
way here. Yeah, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the way that's going to work.
So what did we say before? There were, 4 Wednesday games right now on the schedule. There were 6 last year. So they kind of left a little space maybe for some additional, although you've got the 2
For
Thursdays.
sure, there's going to be some. And then we still don't know if New York City, unless they were told, but I don't think so, that if New York City is playing Leagues Cup, which I hope they're playing Leagues Cup, or they're playing U.S. Open Cup. And as much as I'd like for them to be in both, and I'd love to see them in U.S. Open Cup, I'll take Leagues Cup.
Well, from what Brad Sims told us, the group after the groundbreaking a couple of weeks back, that he said that the supporters will really like the Leagues Cup format, and he left it at that. He wasn't going to dig any deeper.
So I guess that means it's going to be Leagues Cup.
I would think,
Because they're not going to like the Leagues Cup format and then not play in the tournament.
yeah. I would say you're right. I would say. Is your earpiece screwed back in?
It is. My brain isn't, but my earpiece is.
All right. Good. So, we're going to get to Ronny Deila here in a moment, but New York City needs a coach. And
Yes.
indeed, last week we talked about Jim Curtin, and there was a unconfirmed post on X that, basically said that, Curtin was, one of New York City's top choices. Then I had heard something from an assistant coach in the league, and which kind of made it lean in that direction. But we've heard nothing. Here's one thing that happened, Roberto. Now,
We heard one other name. There's one other name that we did hear.
Okay.
We haven't given it much credence so far, but there's one name that has been that we've heard bandied about, and we're not sure yet if it's real or not. And the one name I heard, and maybe you heard this too, I'm not sure, is 64-year-old Jorge Sampaoli. That's the only other name that I've heard, but I don't know how much credence to give to that. But that's another name that I've heard.
How's his English?
I have no idea. Is that a requirement? Is this like U.S. soccer? That it
No.
used to be a requirement, which
I don't think it'll be. I think honestly, now I might be condemned for this statement, but I think it is an important consideration for the New York City Football Club that the head coach speaks English. I just think it is. Being in this, sort of metropolitan area, it'd be great. Bilingual would be wonderful. That would be wonderful.
Pochettino's taken, though.
Pardon?
Pochettino is taken, though.
Yeah, Pochettino is taken. But there was an interesting development. So, Roberto, I just, through the recommendation of somebody several years ago, it was pre-pandemic, within the City Football Group, an assistant at Melbourne City was a guy named Des Buckingham. And I interviewed him, and I was so impressed. And I said, Des, we're going to do this once a year. And he goes, yeah, no problem. He really enjoyed it. He moved from there to become the head coach at Mumbai. By the way, while he was at Melbourne, they won. He went to Mumbai. They won. They hadn't won. And they're both City Football Group establishments.
Okay.
Then he left for Oxford. And one of the main reasons he did is he grew up across the street from their training facility. This is in England. They were in the championship, and they were promoted. They were in League One, and they were promoted to the championship for the first time in many, many, many years. I think I've got this right. I don't want to confuse this. They either got promoted to the top spot or to the top league, the EPL. I think it was the championship. Either way, it was a massive thing. Hero, lifted on everybody's shoulders, parade, the whole thing. Well, they're off to a pretty difficult start this year, and he was sacked. So he's now available. Now, I've mentioned it to people in our club, just, in passing and just saying, do you know this guy? I'm so impressed with him. And so this This is a post I put up when I was going to interview him on the Coaching Academy. This is my Sirius XM show. And Shane, could you put that one up? Boy, I'm still hearing like we're at the ocean or something in the background.
No, I hear nothing. It's nice and quiet here.
All right. So free-flowing football, unwavering team building. That's how Mumbai have described manager Des Buckingham. He's a bright young mind in the game. That's my words. And his teams have extraordinary attacking success because he was also the U20 coach for the New Zealand national team all before this. And they qualified for the World Cup for the first time ever. You can take that off now, Shane. And under his guidance, I just think this guy I think he's a rock star. I think he's a rock star, man. And when you talk to a guy, so I've talked to him now for 3 hours about football. And you can look, I haven't seen him run a training session, but we've talked about the different things he does on the attack to make it work. And I think it would behoove New York City to take a close look at Des Buckingham, even though we're under the impression that they may go outside of the City Football Group for their choice this time. So,
well, we'll see. We'll see what winds up happening. I just hope that whoever the coach is speaks Spanish fluently, because I want to be able to do a pregame show with a coach for a while. We had a lot of fun with Dome with that, and I love speaking to the players. Trust me, there's nothing wrong with that. But coaching can be fun.
Yeah,
to the coaches.
I don't know.
Something's off with my head.
I don't know if I think that's where the interference is coming, Roberto. Seriously, you just took it off and I heard it. And it's on again. The interference again. I can hear it. That's coming from your earpiece.
Weird.
Yeah. Maybe talk through your computer.
No, I'm talking through the microphone. This is
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Unless it didn't take. Hold on. Maybe it didn't.
No, I'm hearing your mic.
It didn't. Okay, hold
on. Okay.
Is it?
All right, now Roberto's muted. Now I can hear you, yeah.
All right. There we go. Now I switched microphones. Something's off. I don't know why.
Oh.
It's really weird.
No, that's better. So this is NYCFC Views Live, everybody. So if you're listening to this back, you're just going to have to deal with the earpiece and the microphone. And, can't hear you now. Actually, we cannot hear you. You just moved your lips and we cannot hear you. So we're going to take the next step here. Are you hearing me, Roberto? Nod your head if you hear me. All right, Shane, you got to help him out. All right. So we're going to switch gears to this Ronny Deila thing. So we've learned that Ronny Deila is they're currently in the final stage of negotiations. We think that Ronny Deila will be the next coach of Atlanta United, who recently named Chris Henderson their new sporting director, leaving from Inter Miami to reunite with Garth Lagerwey. So it all makes sense. The admiration of Ronny Deila, well, he had success in Major League Soccer. He's got a varied background. Remember trophies at Celtic and Vålerenga then in Norway. So he coached in Norway on the club level, Celtic. Then he went to Belgium, Club Bruges, and Standard Liège prior to that. Didn't go particularly well at Bruges. Then he ends up in the Middle East, in the UAE, and that's where he's coached since the beginning of this season. But just 2 losses in 10 games, and that's why there was some wonderment about why he would be sacked or terminated. And you could come to the conclusion where there was a strong desire to make this happen so that he could arrive in Atlanta in time for preseason and then ready to go. So I wanted to go back because we're anticipating this will happen soon. Like Roberto talked about with the coaches that we've had the pleasure of talking to week in and week out. And I always have the coach on my pregame show on the New York City FC Network, our radio commentary. And it's usually about 15 minutes. So I talked to Ronny Deila, like I talked to Dick Cushing, like I talked to Dome Terron, Patrick Vieira, Jason Kreis. Talked to each of them for hours on end when you total it up over the course of the season. So I wanted to play back some Ronny Deila clips, and for Atlanta United fans, they'll find this interesting, I think. But first, I'm going to go back to September of 2020. That's when Ronny came in with Nick Cushing, and through the pandemic, through the MLS Next is Back, or MLS is Back, when they went down to Orlando and all the teams were there. Now we're back to empty stadiums. But I talked to Ronny about his goal of winning an MLS Cup. This is from September of 2020. Idea of what it's going to take to win an MLS Cup, to win a title in this league. Do you get a feel for the league through this limited time you've had for what you need to do? And what is the most important thing to accomplish, you think, along the way to make that happen?
Number one is the foundation. That's the number one. You have to have a defense that is really, really strong. You have to have a group that works together. Everybody's putting in a shift, and it's very clear what you want to do. That's how I see Seattle. That's how I see Toronto. Columbus, hard-working teams doing the job. And then you have to have a offensive pattern that the opponents fear. If you have those two things, it's about individual quality in the last third of the pitch. So that's for me, get the foundation, get a pattern that does make us come around the last third of the pitch as often as possible. And then it's about having the quality up front that can take advantage of the overload we put in the last third.
And he had mentioned Columbus there, and Columbus won MLS Cup that year. So that's from 2020, and we were still not permitted in the stadiums, playing to empty venues. But Ronny Deila, and one other interesting thing he said there is that the foundation and bringing this team together, he said it's not going to happen overnight. He says sometimes it takes 4 to 5 years. Unfortunately, managers don't always have.
Who gets that? Who gets that?
He said it in the interview. Maybe he was teeing up the, David Lee, or was it Claudio Reyna? No, David Lee was the sporting director there, just saying, hey, it's, I want to be here 4 or 5 years, but he left on his own accord in 2022. It should be noted. Now, the next clip.
But what coach, hold on, but before you go there, okay, that 5-year thing, that just came out of Mars. Because what coaches last 5 years, even when things go very, very well, you can count them on like one hand. Coaches that last 5 years. Most coaches last 3, 4.
I hear what you're saying,
and
but
that's like good.
No, but the important point here is that he comes in 20, and there's a point in 2021 where I'm sure he told both of us, we're ahead of schedule, because he didn't anticipate it coming together quite as quickly as it did. And so winning MLS Cup, defeating Portland in penalties, 2021. So I was fortunate enough to talk to first Rob Vertughian and then Ronny Deila for my SiriusXM FC show. This was in preseason 2022, Roberto. So I asked Rob Vertughian about Ronny Deila and his success with the club.
I think what Ronny's done with the mentality of the group is amazing. This is a team with very high expectations placed on it, as they should. It's professional sports, and you need to win, and everybody understands that. And the end goal of everything is a trophy. I think what Ronny's done with this group, that's his leadership, is pretty special, is he's managed to get everybody to just focus on the process versus the end result. And for me, that was one of the things that I think is the biggest difference. And I think it's a big reason why we won. And he drives that. He speaks about that. The importance of the process, the importance of the journey, and the importance of wanting to improve, and the importance of learning. The repetitive voice over time changes the culture, changes the thinking, because everybody comes in and you feel this pressure, and all you think about is winning. And in years past, that especially in a club like ours, that is, it can paralyze a group that's not prepared, ready for that.
Pretty interesting comments. Could paralyze a group because you're focused only on winning. So Ronny brought that in, and Nick continued with that theme too. Look at process. You've got to be concerned about results, but don't constantly think about winning. And I had to play that Vartugian clip because look, that just for the record, that was 2 months after the celebration at City Hall with the shades and the hair. He looked good there, man. He looked good. Now to just piggyback, and then we'll talk a little bit more. Here's one more for Ronny Deila. And again, this is February of 2022, after winning MLS Cup, and talking about fun versus the consequences, to follow up what Rob said.
But I say always to the players, I don't care if you do a mistake this weekend or next weekend or tomorrow, but you have to be a better football player in 3 to 6 months than you are today. So when you see the longer perspective, you have to see a lot of improvement because you have to learn about your decision making. But short term, it's about go out and have fun and enjoy it and do the things that we have been talking about all the time. And then that way, I think you take away the consequence thinking a lot. And I think consequence thinking is the worst when you go out and are scared to do mistakes, scared to lose. And I think that's if you see manager like Jürgen Klopp, it's something he can do with a team is to get them to enjoy playing football. And when you see a team enjoying, it's very hard to beat them. It's very, very hard to beat them.
It is hard to have fun when you're not getting results, though. Would you agree?
It is, but I think it's easier when you focus on tasks, that you go back to what can I do something with. You're a journalist, I have to say you are also a coach, but when you talk with journalists, as a coach, you get like, why did I sit and talk with this? Because everything is gone to the result, and you have to look behind the result. That's my job.
All right. I'm glad he at least referred to me as a coach, not just a journalist.
Well, but you are. So that's absolutely 100% valid and correct. But here's a couple of things, right? We understand what he's trying to say, and I agree with the mentality. I guess there are a couple of teams in the world that can only think about winning, and that's the only thing that matters. And you're looking at Manchester City, although that's not happening this year. And then you're looking at Real Madrid, maybe Barcelona, Bayern Munich. Those are the teams. I mean, maybe Liverpool. Okay, those are the only teams. All right, it ends there. Everybody else got to do something else. And so they all have their own philosophies on how, you keep the team together even when you're not. Now, in MLS, this league is built for parity. It's the only league in the world that has this sort of a salary cap where the intention is that there are new champions every year. That's what they're looking for. So every coach has a different way of going through things. So like I remember Dome, who, by the way, had a fantastic season with Atlético San Luis in Mexico. He always hated to take a player out if they weren't playing well or they made like a huge mistake. He always hated not putting them back in the starting lineup the next week. And it was basically, you don't want them to lose confidence. You don't want them to be thinking about mistakes all the time. And so that was his way of dealing with that, trying to allow the player to work himself, through these things. And, Spurs today is going to have that decision when it comes to their next game after what Forster did and allowing the first 2 goals to Manchester United, which were just absolutely laughable mistakes by him. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they handle him going into next week, into their next game after what happened today. It's, every team, they handle it differently, and how you want to maintain team unity, which is important.
Yeah. And I just think of the pressures of winning. Look at the first year, Jason Kreis. It was a difficult year for Jason, and he admitted later on, it's I'm not I'm not opening up anything that isn't pretty well known, but he was stressed, and he was put in a big spot with a big group, the City Football Group, and unfortunately, couldn't get it done to the postseason, and that was it, one and done for Jason, who's now back happy in the mountains of Utah with Real Salt Lake in a position,
which is where he had his success.
It
where
is
he won a championship and got to another final.
And he recently was out doing a site inspection in Indio, California, because RSL is going to be one of the 12 Major League Soccer teams that will be participating in the Coachella Invitational. One of the other 12 is the New York City Football Club. So they will be out there starting February 5th through the 17th, something like that. Right up until I think the last game is against Minnesota, who they'll play in the regular season at one point. And then a week later, it's fly to Miami. Fly to Miami for the season opener. So that's Coachella, which will also have NWSL teams following up the MLS teams. There's going to be 6 of those there too. And MLS Super Draft coming up tomorrow, Friday. 477 players from 150 schools eligible for the draft. New York City has the 24th selection overall. It was a fun one last year when we got Malachi Jones. As
you can get good players in the draft. People sometimes poo-poo it, Philadelphia, but you can get some pretty good players there if you know what you're doing.
All right, Roberto, let's kick it around.
Let's go.
MLS publishes the 2025 GAM availability of all clubs. A first, being lauded by those who have followed the league over the years as a really important, transparent part of the process of being more transparent, Major League Soccer. So this is pretty interesting because you see everybody's availability in GAM, and the first thing that pops out is that Ronny Deila, if indeed it works out and he gets signed as a head coach for Atlanta United, is going to have $6.5 million in GAM, along with Garth and Chris Henderson to figure out who to bring in.
That's going to be pretty formidable. You figure that they're going to rearm that team pretty well. The fact that they made the playoffs after getting rid of their 2 best players in Thiago Almada and Giacomakis, who, by the way, had a so-so year in Cruz Azul. So we'll see what transpires there. I'm interested to see what they're going to do, because it's not only that they got $6 million in GAM, but they have an owner in Arthur Blank who is absolutely about pushing the limits as far as, buying players and, getting to the top of that salary cap to make his team the best. And especially if you consider that so many no-shows in the second half of the season in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and he was unhappy with that. I mean, even when we went, and there must have been, out of the 42,000 tickets distributed, there was probably 20,000 people there. And that looks really bad, and trust me, I'm sure he's not happy.
Are you calling him Arthur Blank Check? Is that what you just did?
I did not say that, but, he's willing to spend it. He's been one of those owners that is all about spending the money and making the team as good as they can make it. They just haven't made good decisions, that's all.
Maybe just to define GAM a little bit, and I'm probably the least able to put a proper spin on this, but it's every team in the league gets $2.93 million in GAM. I don't know how that figure was reached. And then I think one of the more significant changes is that you can use up to $3 million now in GAM. So you can add $3 million on top of that through transfer players. Like we always talk about Tati Castellanos, big transfer, lots of cash, and New York City could only use a little over $1 million to actually go out and find players. Now that figure is $3 million.
So, that's important, because you should be able to. If you get a player for $5 million, you sell him for 12. You should have the ability of using that money, because you were smart and good and maybe lucky, to be able to make your team better. Put it all in. It should be all in. And this will encourage other teams to go and try to use that model, because it's a good, successful model if you do it right.
Now, here's one. Now, you have to declare, I don't have a date here, but at some point, whenever the roster compliance date is, teams all have to, as they had to do this summer when this thing changed midstream, you have to declare whether you're going to go 2 DPs and 4 U22 initiatives, or 3 DPs and 3 U22 initiatives. So you got 6 total, and it's either 2 and 4 or 3 and 3. Now, if you go the 2 and 4 route, and this is to encourage the teams in the league to go younger, you can get an additional $2 million in GAM tacked on to what that 2.93 and any other that you've accumulated either through a trade or the transfer, whatever might happen there. So there's incentive through all that. Now, I have no idea how all these GAM figures were accumulated. New York City has $3.285 million in GAM, which, get a couple of good players with that, can't you?
Oh, I think so. I would think so. You can. I mean, if you do this right, you can fill up your team.
The top 3, Roberto, are, we talked about Atlanta, the New England Revolution. Now, did you see they acquired a forward today?
Yeah, they got Campana from Miami. Leo Campana from Miami.
Yeah, and it cost them $2 million in GAM. So they have 5.585 to play with. Now go -2 on that, so they still have 3.5 million in GAM to get more players. But Campana, he's a good forward.
He is, and he needed to play. I understand that. I mean, he was sitting behind Suarez, so he didn't want to rot away there. He's a fringe Ecuadorian national team player, meaning, he's been called in sometimes, but not all the time. He's not a lock. He's not automatic, and he needs playing time. And so now you go up there where they need a forward. So you wish them the best with Callum Porter.
Yep. And 0.80 goals per 90 minutes, Campana, in his career with Miami. So he's definitely a goal scorer, and that's huge for them. I feel like I wrote down a couple of the trades that I wanted to.
Brugman.
Yeah, Brugman. That was one.
That's a huge one. So Brugman got traded.
There it is.
The MLS MVP got traded from the Galaxy to Nashville for Sean Davis and other considerations. So
100K GAM, 100K.
Yeah, hence other considerations.
But since we're talking GAM,
that's a really good move for Nashville. He's a good player who sort of had lost his spot by the way that they had played. And then Ricky Pooch got hurt, so they had to put him back in the lineup. And boy, did he deliver on an MLS Cup! So it's absolutely, such a great move for him. And we wish him all the best over there in Nashville.
He was left unprotected, option declined, so they've got something brewing. I think there's who knows what it is, but
we've had somebody whisper in our ear who it might be.
Well, it could be one of those
somebody
people
who's very, very familiar with LA and with United States in general, and that's Mr. Griezmann, who's spoken about MLS in the past, and he might be heading out west to the champs. That's one of the rumors that we have heard. Nothing confirmed. Nothing. We don't have any direct knowledge of this. We're just saying this is a rumor. We're just passing the rumor along. Nothing more than that.
Well, if they dump another player of great expense, something's going to happen. Griezmann, by the way, wasn't he caught riding the subway in New York City at one point? And then that spurred the rumors that New York City was going to sign him in the summer transfer window.
He's every time he comes to New York, and I think it's been more than once because I remember seeing this, but he loves going to Knicks games at Madison Square Garden. No doubt about that. And if it winds up that he goes out to LA, then he'll go see the Lakers, who aren't as good as the Knicks this year.
Yeah. Buckley Yo is reminding us that Miguel Almiron, there's some rumors there about him going to Charlotte.
Yeah, he's lost his spot in Newcastle. He's spot player off the bench. And so coming back to MLS is a consideration. Charlotte would be probably a good spot for him. He's got so much talent still.
So the East, New England had to do something. They've started to do it, and good for them. I just think, and you mentioned Sean Davis, Jersey boy, former captain of the Red Bulls. He's just a solid, player who can fit in really well with a group like the Galaxy has too. Just kind of a good stay-at-home midfielder, does the dirty work. can pass the ball, and always like Sean Davis. Always like.
Yeah.
All right, so I know we have about 6 or 7 minutes.
Yes.
I just want to put this out here because I thought this was pretty good. So put the 8-second rule for keeper, that screenshot, please, Shane. So there's your Argentinian friend. 8 seconds for goalkeepers to release the ball or concede a corner.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, so it's okay. So before it used to be a indirect kick. It used to be the indirect kick with the 6 seconds. Now, I mean, they take a hell of a lot more than 6 seconds, and so now they've introduced the 8-second rule. All right, let's see if that works. I mean, that would all work if they freaking enforced them, but they never do.
Well, it's been utilized in the Premier League's got this great U21 competition, so they've I guess it's been utilized there with success. And the goalkeepers. I don't know if Sean Johnson will like this rule, but
no goalkeeper will like it.
Yeah.
And look, they're trying to keep the ball rolling, and that's fine. I get it.
All right. Oh, finally. So, Roberto, I'm considering doing like a end every show with a word, and I will define it, but and always related to soccer. Always related to soccer. But I saw this story. I think you know this story, and it's college football. So Marshall University, they accepted an invitation to play in one of these bowls. I do not know what bowl game it was, against Army. But then, just a couple of days ago, they backed out of the acceptance.
Yes.
So a team had to be found. It turns out it's going to be Louisiana Tech. Their head football coach is Sonny Cumbie. So Sonny woke up one morning $25,000 richer because he has an incentive clause in his contract that if his team goes to a bowl, he gets a $25K bonus.
That's pretty cool. So so Army was supposed to play Marshall, the Thundering Herd, but their coach got another job, and a lot of their players went into the transfer portal, and they basically couldn't field a complete team. So, these are some of the things that happen in college football. So they had to back out, and that's how Louisiana Tech got to play Army. And Army sadly lost to Navy. They're probably out of the top 25.
So my word is, and I care so little about what you just said, but my word.
By the way, that works for every subject, everybody. I just want you to know that. It's for any subject at all. That's the way that works.
No. So the word is serendipity. Do you know that word? It's a great word.
Have you been to Serendipity on just between 3rd and 2nd Avenue?
I have. But the first time I heard that word used, and it was part of his the lexicon of Walt Clyde Frazier, and he used it in his commentary, serendipity. And what serendipity is good luck in making unexpected and fortunate discoveries. Therefore, Sonny Cumbie waking up to $25K bonus, which he had no idea that could possibly happen. That for him was serendipity. In soccer, it might be Tati Castellanos hitting a shot that would have gone 6 feet wide left. It deflected off a defender. Should have been an own goal, but he was given one of his 19 goals the year he won the Golden Boot. That was serendipity.
That's serendipity. Absolutely. Of course, we don't know what would have happened if that shot just continued to go wide. What would have, because the timeline stops at that point, and now, or it changes, right, the way it goes. So had it gone wide, then we don't know what could have happened. He could have scored another 4 goals that day. We don't know what would have happened. People keep on thinking that everything stays the same after something like that, and nothing stays the same.
That's interesting. That must have a name. So can you educate it? Is there a word for that?
The way I look at it and the way I've learned it is basically it's an alternate timeline. The timeline now changes.
Yeah. Yep. Or
because you can't go back and say, well, he would have scored the exact same thing in his life would have happened from that moment on had the ball gone wide, as opposed to deflecting off a defense and going in.
Well, all right. I'll give another serendipity example. a shot is taken, it deflects wildly in a different direction.
Yeah.
And I happen to be just standing there, and I end up scoring a goal, maybe into an empty net or something.
Or you can just be Manchester United today, who got 2 absolute gifts from Spurs. that was more than serendipity. That was Christmas.
And like Clyde, well, those gifts sometimes are given.
Yes,
Whether
they
it's a
are.
holiday or not, but it is holiday time, so why
By
not?
the way, Clyde, as you, former teammate of mine.
Oh,
Because when I did the Knicks on TV and radio, I was teammate of Clyde. He did English, I did Spanish.
it's beautiful.
And then we were in a cab together going to the United Center in Chicago, and my partner at the time, Clemson Smith Muniz, was talking, and then he was talking about the fact that he did play-by-play, and then it comes back to me that I do color, and I said, Clyde, I don't rhyme. I do not rhyme.
He is the rhymer. There's nobody better than
He's
Clyde.
so good. He's so good. It's such a brilliant broadcast when listening to the Knicks with Mike Breen and him, it's just so good. MSG does a great job.
Yep. Well, my claim to fame with Clyde is I replaced him as an analyst, and Mike Breen was the play-by-play on a U.S. basketball league, USBL broadcast. I think at Marist College, something like that. It was crazy.
At Marist, Eddie will be happy about that.
I think it was at Marist. And do you remember that
Red
USBL
Foxes.
Manute Bowl? And
Yeah, absolutely. I met
Webb.
Manute Bowl. I was unbelievable. By the way, his legs were the size of my arms, and wow, his son is in the league. Bol playing in the NBA. Yep.
All right.
Bol.
Cool. All right. Well, it's been an eventful hour here on NYCFC Views Live. So the schedule, 2025 MLS schedule, released today. So we got into that pretty deeply, and we talked about New York City still without a coach. It's getting close. Brad Sims said the desire is to have someone by Christmas. That would be the middle of next week. That's not a guarantee. That is their desire. We believe Ronny Deila will be the next coach of Atlanta United. And MLS is telling us the gam of all the teams that is available and putting a little bit more accountability on those that run those shows too, Roberto,
Absolutely. And I'm
the way it
thrilled
works.
that we get to go to
Roberto, for
to go
some
to
reason
LA.
your mic has been turned off. Shane, good job, buddy. Good job. So what I'm going to say is, for Roberto
Fine.
Abramowitz, I'm Glenn Crooks. Thanks so much, Shane, on NYCFC Views Live.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.